the most important afternoon in 22 years of this football club's life. And the players are not on a pitch. They are in a room at the training ground, in their tracksuits, sitting on sofas and leaning on the backs of chairs, staring at a television. On the screen, a stadium on the south coast of England, a game they are not playing in, a game they cannot touch, cannot influence, cannot change. Manchester City, the team that has tormented them for years, are drawing 1 each at Bournemouth. And if that score does not change in the next few minutes, then Arsenal, this room full of men holding their breath, will be champions of England. For the first time since 2004, hold that picture. Grown men, professional athletes, completely powerless, watching their entire season be decided by other people in another city. Because to understand why this room is shaking, you have to understand what these 22 years actually did to this club. You have to go back to the last time they stood on top. 2004, the Invincibles, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira. A team that went through an entire league season, 38 games, without losing a single one. It had never been done in the modern era. It has not been done since. They were not just champions, they were untouchable. And everyone, absolutely everyone, assumed the good times would simply roll on forever. That is always how it begins. 2 years later, they reached the final of the Champions League, the biggest club game in the world, and lost it late to Barcelona. It would turn out to be the closest they would come for 2 decades. And then they moved house. They left Highbury, their cramped and beloved old home, and built a gleaming new stadium. The Emirates, 60,000 seats, a monument to ambition. But that monument came with a mortgage, an enormous debt that had to be paid down year after year, and while their rivals spent fortunes they did not have, Arsenal had to be careful. Frugal. They had to sell to survive, and so a slow bleed began. In 2008, they almost did it anyway. February, 5 points, clear at the top of the table, a young, thrilling team playing the best football in the country. They went to Birmingham. And in the 3rd minute, their striker, Eduardo, went down under a horror tackle that snapped his leg so badly that grown commentators could not look at it. The team never recovered that afternoon. A goal conceded in the 95th minute stole the win, and at the final whistle, their captain, William Gallas, sat down on the pitch alone and refused to move, a man having a breakdown in front of the world. The title slipped away. They finished 3rd. That was the beginning of the pattern, and the pattern was heartbreak. Then came the years that hurt the most, because they did not just lose games. They lost their best players, one by one, to the very rivals they were trying to beat. Cesc Fabregas, their captain, the boy they raised, went home to Barcelona. Samir Nasri left for the money at Manchester City. And then, the cruelest of all. In 2012, Robin van Persie, their captain, their talisman, the best striker in the world that year, forced his way out the door and signed for Manchester United. And he scored the goals that won United the league. Arsenal had become a finishing school, raising talent for everyone else to enjoy. The humiliations piled up. 8 goals to 2 at Old Trafford, 6-0 at Chelsea, 5-1 at Liverpool. Scorelines that would have been unthinkable in the Invincibles years now arrived like weather. And in 2011, they had the one thing every fan craved: a final, a trophy, 90 minutes away, the League Cup at Wembley against Little Birmingham City, a team that would be relegated that very season. Arsenal were overwhelming favorites, and in the 89th minute, with the score level, a long ball dropped between the goalkeeper and the defender. The two of them hesitated. The ball squirmed loose, and a Birmingham striker tapped it into an empty net. They lost. To Birmingham. In the most demoralizing way a team can possibly lose, and something inside the club broke a little more. By now, the fans were not even angry. They were resigned. Then came the punchline. 2016, the one year the Giants all stumbled at once. City, Chelsea, United, Liverpool, all of them faltering. The title was sitting there for the taking. In February, a last-minute winner against Leicester sent the Emirates into delirium. Surely, finally, this was the year. Instead, Arsenal fell apart against the smaller teams, and a 5,000-to-1 outsider, Leicester City, won the whole thing. Arsenal were not even the heartbreak story that season. They were the joke, the team that should have won and didn't, while a miracle happened next to them. The protests started after that. Planes flew over the stadium trailing banners. Fans turned on the manager who had given them the Invincibles. And in 2018, after 22 years, Arsene Wenger walked away. What followed was worse because it was empty. A new manager, Unai Emery, 18 months of confusion, a European final humiliation, a team that no longer knew what it was. And in December 2019, into a half-empty, freezing, miserable stadium, walked a former Arsenal captain to take the job nobody envied, Mikel Arteta. He did something unusual. He surveyed the staff, everyone in the building, and asked them to describe the place. He gathered the words together, and the word that came back biggest, the word that defined this proud old club, was a single one: toxic. He said later that the sight of that half-empty stadium got inside him, that he stood there and decided, if this is what it is, there is no project here. This will not work unless everything changes. So everything changed, slowly, painfully. He tore the squad down and built it again from almost nothing. And for a while, it got worse before it got better. But then finally, Arsenal were good again, genuinely good, which set up the cruelest era of all. Because being bad does not break your heart. Being second does. 2023. Arsenal led the league for 248 days, almost the entire season, more than any team that has ever then gone on to lose it. They were 8 points clear in April, and then they cracked a 2-0 lead thrown away at Liverpool. Draws against teams they should have beaten. And then Manchester City, ruthless and relentless, ran them down and crushed them. Second, then they did it again. 2024. So close they could taste it. Beaten to the title by 2 points. Second, then again, 2025. Third year running. Second, 3 times. 3 seasons in a row, they had run the marathon and finished 1 step behind. The media gave them a name for it. The perennial bridesmaids, always close, never champions. A team that did everything except the one thing that mattered. The whispers said they did not have it in them, that they were bottlers, that this was simply who they were now. 22 years of this, of injuries and breakdowns and stolen captains and thrashings and last-minute disasters and 3 near misses in a row. A whole generation of supporters who had grown from children into adults, having never, not once, seen their club win the league. And that brings us back to the room. This season, it had nearly slipped away again. In April, they had it in their hands and stumbled, lost to City, and every Arsenal fan alive felt the old familiar dread rise up. Here it comes again, the same ending, the same heartbreak, in the same place, against the same team. But this team did not crack. This time, they won 4 games in a row without conceding a single goal. They put their heads down and they refused, absolutely refused, to fold. And they climbed back to the top and they stayed there. Which is why, on the 19th of May, they have no game of their own to play. They have done their part. The only thing left is out of their hands entirely. Manchester City must win at Bournemouth to keep the race alive. If City drop even a single point, it is over. The wait ends. So the players gather around a television at the training ground to watch a match they are not in the whole of their season. 22 years of pain, resting on 11 men in another stadium who have nothing to do with them. And the score stays at 1 each. The minutes bleed away. Bournemouth hold. City cannot find the goal they need, and in that room full of footballers, the realization begins to move through them like a current. The understanding that it is actually happening, that nobody can take it from them now, that after everything, after all of it, the ball is finally, mercifully, not at their feet. The whistle blows 350 miles away, and the room explodes. If you have ever waited so long for something that you stopped letting yourself believe it could happen, then take a moment now before this ends to follow along here. Because the quiet hours before the loud ones are the whole reason this place exists. They are champions, the 14th league title in the club's history, and the first in 22 years. Mikel Arteta, the man who walked into a toxic, half-empty stadium and refused to accept it, is the first Arsenal manager to win the league since Arsene Wenger. And here's the part the celebration footage does not tell you. It did not erase any of it. The broken leg, the captain crying on the pitch, the empty net at Wembley, the captains who left, the 8-2, the Bridesmaid Years. None of that gets undone. It all still happened. 22 years do not disappear because of one afternoon. They are simply, finally, given a meaning. Every one of those heartbreaks turned out to be a brick, and this was the thing they were building the whole time, even when no one could see it, even when it looked like nothing at all. So, go back to that room. The tracksuits, the television, the men who could only watch. They were not powerless. They were just waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to what they already were. History happens in the